March 14, 1945, 06:48 a.m. A sleepy Japanese airfield trembled under the weight of another kamikaze launch. Ground crews moved quietly. No chatter, no excitement, just the mechanical routine of watching young pilots climb into aircraft built for one final dive. 19-year-old Masaru Tanaka walked toward his Zero with the same calmness as a man boarding a bus. The officers gave him nothing more than a nod. No encouragement, no farewell. This was a mission designed with a single ending. His fighter looked tired, even before leaving the ground. Chipped paint, patched metal, and a smoky engine that coughed like an old man. But the commanders only cared that it could fly one last time. Masaru strapped in, checked his gauges, and pushed the throttle forward. The Zero rolled down the runway as the sun broke across the horizon. Most kamikaze pilots wrote final letters before takeoff. Masaru didn't bother. His was already written months ago. The aircraft lifted into the morning sky, carrying him toward an American destroyer cutting through the Pacific. He knew the target. He knew the orders. And he knew he wasn't coming back. But what happened next was not in the script. Not for him. Not for the men on the destroyer, and not for the Navy that would later bury the truth. March 14th, 1945, 9:31 a.m. Masaru spotted the American destroyer far ahead. Small, gray, fast, slicing through the Pacific like a knife. This was the moment every kamikaze pilot trained for. He pushed the throttle all the way forward. The Zero shook, screamed, and trailed a thick line of smoke behind it. Seconds later, the sky erupted. American anti-aircraft guns opened fire instantly. Tracer rounds shredded the space around his wings. Shrapnel burst beneath the fuselage, rattling every panel of his aircraft. One explosion hit so close that Masaru's head slammed against the canopy. His vision doubled. The ocean spun. The Zero dropped into a violent spiral, a dive he didn't control anymore. Every second dragged him closer to a death he had already accepted. The destroyer grew larger in his blurred sight. The water rose like a wall. This should have been the end. But in the final moments, the failing engine coughed one last time, jerking the Zero left, throwing it off target, missing the ship by a hair. The wings scraped the ocean. The aircraft flipped. Masaru's world went black as the Pacific swallowed him completely. He believed this was death, but somewhere above the waves, someone had already spotted him. March 14th, 1945, 1:12 p.m. Masaru woke to something impossible. American voices. He was lying on the deck of the very destroyer he'd tried to destroy. A sailor pressed a cloth to his head wound. Another brought water. Someone muttered, "He's barely a kid." Masaru didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Instead of hatred, instead of rage, they treated him like a human being they found drowning. The sailors carried him to the medical bay. He expected interrogation or punishment. Instead, they patched him up, covered him with a blanket, and simply let him breathe. For hours he drifted in and out, each time realizing something even stranger. They were trying to keep him alive. That should have been the biggest mystery. But the real one came later, when the captain himself walked in. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten. He simply told the sailors, "Bring him to my cabin." Masaru didn't know it yet, but inside that room was the answer to why he was rescued, and why the Navy needed him alive more than his own commanders ever did. March 15th, 1945, 8:40 a.m. Masaru was escorted into the captain's cabin, a small room with a metal desk, a lantern, and a single folder marked "Classified." The captain opened the folder without speaking. Inside were aerial photographs, intercepts, maps of Japanese airfields. And then Masaru saw it. A clear photograph of him, standing beside his Zero, taken days before his mission. He froze. The Americans knew exactly who he was. They knew his unit. They knew his base. They even knew the timing of his attack. The captain looked at him and said slowly, "We weren't surprised. We were waiting." Masaru felt a chill ripple down his spine. This wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. Someone inside Japan's command was leaking information. Someone close enough to Masaru that he had seen that person days before flying out. The Navy didn't rescue him because he was young. They rescued him because he was connected to a secret the Americans needed to understand before the war ended. What the captain revealed next was something the Navy locked away for decades, hidden in sealed files, released long after most people involved were gone. Masaru wasn't a prisoner. He was a witness. And the truth he carried was bigger than his mission, bigger than his survival, and powerful enough that the Navy shielded it from the world. October 22nd, 2015, 4:09 p.m. Decades after the war, Masaru finally revealed the truth he carried for most of his life. His unit had been infiltrated. A high-ranking officer was secretly passing information to the Americans. Flight plans, launch times, supply routes. Masaru had spoken to that officer 5 days before his Kamikaze mission, and didn't know it meant his life would be spared. The U.S. Navy pulled him from the ocean because he was one of the only remaining pilots who had direct contact with the mole. The rescue wasn't mercy. It was necessity. They questioned him, not with violence, but with patience. He provided details he never realized were important at the time. Voices, names, habits, conversations. He didn't know it, but he was helping expose one of the most effective intelligence leaks of the entire Pacific War. Masaru lived a long life, quiet, hidden, almost anonymous. But the truth never left him. Near the end, he said only this: "I survived because someone inside Japan tried to stop the war, and someone inside America needed me alive to prove it. And that was the secret buried for 70 years. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe these forgotten voices deserve to be heard, then consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a small comment. It helps keep history alive. And if you wish to support this work in a deeper way, you can reach out on Instagram. Every bit of support or donation helps preserve another untold story.